We're going to move on to item 6.9, our 10:30 a.m. item, consideration of presentation on Roadmap Task Force accomplishments, lessons learned, and proposed community-oriented policing and targeted restoration, also known as COPTR, for Nice, Lucerne, and other shoreline area communities for fiscal years 24-25 through 26-27. And we have Director Turner, we have Mr. Beltramo, and we have Sheriff Howe.
Good morning, Mireya Turner, Community Development Director. The item before you is a presentation or a recap of the 2-year pilot program, Roadmap Task Force. This program was approved by the board in 2021. The purpose is to reduce crime and blight, to promote public safety, to enhance community beautification, all to improve the quality of life on a focused community. The Roadmap Task Force, when the board approved it, your decision was to focus on the gateway community of Clear Lake Oaks. After it was approved, it took a little bit of time for code enforcement to get up and running because we still were right in the middle of bringing on new staff and getting a lot of the trainings done. And so because of that, we came to the board last year and reported 2022 as the first year. And so this year we consider the second year, 2023. We also really appreciated the deepening of the relationship that we built with the sheriff's office. The personnel definitely worked well with code enforcement, some rough patches, but actually it really helped us to identify some lessons learned that we'll cover briefly in a moment. You have before you on the staff report, page 1 and 2, tables showing the results of this focused work. And unless Sheriff Howe wanted to cover the sheriff's stats, there are just a few things I really wanted to point out to the board.
Go ahead.
Okay, cool. 9 human trafficking victims were located and rescued in 2022. That's crazy. Just that there are that many, but yay, that's amazing. Additionally, in the 2 years, 112,046 illegal cannabis plants were eradicated. As far as processed cannabis goes, the total of seizing those was 20,352 pounds.
And Director, I'm sorry.
Go jump in.
Yeah. Stats. I thought you were going to go over your stuff. And the board's had these stats in the past. We've presented them a few times, and I'd like to echo a few things Director Turner said about the coordination between the Sheriff's Office and code enforcement. These multi-agency task forces are so valuable. To have all the tools together to work together is synergistic effect, and it's come a long way. So I appreciate that as well. As far as the Sheriff's Department stats, we have a lot of them, and you've heard most of them. Some that really stand out is in 2022, 94 arrests, in 2023, 67. That's just a sergeant and a deputy. 44 firearms seized in 22, 60 in 23. Fentanyl seized, and I've put this out there before, 1 pound, 8 ounces in 2022, but 9 pounds and 4 ounces in 2023. I did a talk at one point, did some math on this with a DEA formula. That's enough fentanyl to potentially kill like 2 million people or something. It's ridiculous. But that's a lot of dangerous narcotic taken off the street. 6 pounds of meth in 1 year, 101 gram in the next. Went over pot cannabis plant seized already. And then asset forfeiture. We seized worth $114,000 in 2022, $408,000 in 2023. I know I've had a little discussion about asset forfeiture. It's one of those things where it hurts the criminal more than jail time to take away their money and assets. So those are big things. They're very difficult cases to work. We have to maintain those items in light condition, so it's kind of challenging, but it's worth it in the end. And one more final stat: the street value of the drugs seized in 2022, $3,716,198, and in 2023, $6,082,300. Big stats.
Indeed.
And the thing I pointed out with all these stats is, I'm not going to say none of this happens without the task force, but most of this does not happen without the task force. So thank you for your support in the past.
In code enforcement, each year, the first year, 211 cases were created. This could be a variety of code violations. The second year was 196 cases. And to me, having that many cases 2 years in a row really speaks to the need of a long-term focus on a community to really make a significant difference. 121 of those cases of the 211 were closed the first year, and then 57 were closed the second year. And that goes to show the benefit of having a longer-term focus of code enforcement personnel, because it takes time to go through these cases. Abatements, there were 32 vehicles abated in 2023. And if there are any stats that Marcus wanted to jump in and sort of illustrate, you're free to do so. I don't want to hog. So. Okay. Lessons learned then, moving on. Law enforcement and code enforcement, though complementing each other, work in very different ways, and we have different timelines. Code enforcement has a number of due process rights to make sure that are respected during the abatement process, and all of those have their own timelines as well. So we are slower than law enforcement is to go in and take action. Additionally, I don't want to use the word whack-a-mole, but when law enforcement goes in and cleans out one location, we frequently find the exact same players then just scooch over to a different community and continue the same activities. So in that aspect, having those two dedicated officers limited or focused on Clear Lake Oaks was sort of a detriment to having the flexibility to be able to follow these bad actors as they moved from community to community. Those were two of the main lessons that we learned. One, that law enforcement needs additional flexibility as far as location, and that code enforcement does well, is served well with a long-term focus on a single community.
Yeah, to chime in on that, we've experienced this in the past as well with the Clear Lake Oaks Recovery Task Force numerous years ago. Whenever you focus on one area, that is a problem. People are just going to move. They're going to know you there. They're going to be in Lucerne or Clear Lake. So the freedom to move around and broaden the area is a benefit.
Thank you. Oh, Johanna, would you hand those out, please? Thank you. Yep, but I thought I'd give it to him in hard copy too. Yes, please. Oh, thank you. So in discussion of these lessons learned and looking back over the 2 years, staff has the following proposal: that we change the roadmap task force and its focus for a 2-year period on the community of Clear Lake Oaks and sort of transition it into the next stage, which would be community-oriented policing with a more flexible boundary, as well as targeted restoration by code enforcement in the neighborhoods of Nice and Lucerne. The board has continually mentioned that the areas, when we've come up with abatement issues, that Nice and Lucerne are in dire need of attention. So staff proposes then an extension of time, a 3-year focus on the Nice and Lucerne communities, with the authority for the sheriff's office to expand their boundaries, and you'll see that up on the slide. The purple boundary is law enforcement, sheriff's office areas, while maintaining a focused targeted restoration effort on code enforcement, which is that pink shaded area in the neighborhoods of Nice and Lucerne. Additionally, we propose housing our code enforcement officers within the sheriff's substation. This would help to, one, create a presence, an ongoing presence in the community, as well as aid in the efficiency to have our officers centered there with the equipment that they need to respond faster rather than driving back to Lakeport all the time. You'll see following tables on page 3 and page 4 are the proposed budgeted for the budget codes for Code Enforcement 2603 and Sheriff's Office 2201. Code Enforcement, we've broken it down into everything we can think of that we're going to need to equip our officers for faster response times, which would include the rugged laptops and mobile printers. So they'll be able to issue their notices and citations without having to even go back to the sheriff's substation. Also, one thing to highlight is the nuisance abatement fund. That's at the very bottom of the code enforcement of $250,000. This would enable code enforcement to do abatements without having to take into account the abatement fund that is countywide. And then additionally, it would fund 2 code enforcement officers and 2 sheriff deputies, or a sergeant and a deputy for a period of 3 years.
And for the sheriff's department budget, you'll see most of the equipment we have, it's kind of what we do every day anyway, so it's mostly salary. The big difference being, in this, we looked a little bit at overtime and we added that. There's increase in salary throughout the years. The overtime, I think, is just necessary. You can't do work like this that's not going to result in a late call, a search warrant, or surveillance, that kind of thing. That was the justification for the necessity of overtime.
So the Community-Oriented Policing and Targeted Restoration Program just happened to have a catchy little acronym, COPTR. So that concludes our presentation, but we're more than happy to take any questions.
Supervisor Pyska?
Well, this is exciting. When we dreamed this whole idea up in 2021, this is exactly what we wanted to see. We wanted to see this investment in public safety, and I didn't think that we would see results like this. It's pretty eye-opening to see that there's such a need. And we did choose Clear Lake Oaks because it's the gateway, but it was always the intention to move up the shore to other areas that really need it. So I am definitely in favor in continuing this investment. I'm just wondering, though, with the recommendation, are we approving this in concept and then bringing this back for discussion during budgets so that we can really review what else is in those budget unions? I'm seeing some nodding back there. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Any other comments? Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Thank you also. I spoke briefly with both Sheriff and Maria. And obviously, the first iteration of this roadmap task force took place before I was on the board. And I understand the need, and I support my colleagues in acknowledging the need there. But I'm just in this robbing Peter to pay Paul mode. That when we set up these targeted enforcement things, that is necessarily going to make less staff available for problem issues elsewhere in the county, including specifically in District 4. And I'm also going to want to go back to kind of an ongoing area of concern, and that's cannabis enforcement. And we don't have a unified cannabis program either, although we probably need one where the sheriff and code enforcement and all that can really get a handle on the massive number of illegal grow sites in the county. So while acknowledging the need in this linear strip of land on the North Shore communities and wanting to be supportive of this board's prior direction and the plan brought here by staff, I wonder if you can just speak to that, because if we're targeting enforcement in certain areas, doesn't that carry an opportunity cost of enforcement in other areas?
I'll talk about it from the sheriff's office point of view. I mean, ideally, we would have a task force like this in every community. That's just not realistic. And for me, staffing, if it was ideal, we would have some proactivity in every beat, just with a cover officer, again, and we hope to get back to that time. But just because that would be ideal doesn't mean this isn't a good idea. For us, it's not going to limit what our minimum staffing is going to be on patrol. And we have actually even used our officers in the past that do this on overtime paid for outside of this if we need them. So again, you're right in that ideally this would be everywhere, but I don't think it's robbing us of somewhere, robbing us of something somewhere else. I do like the fact that it's moving around, because that does happen, as we spoke about. You're going to get people, you're going to get an area saturated, they move around. But as this task force moves and has a little wider range, I think the benefits will be there.
Supervisor Pyska?
And just to add on to that, it was always the intention to not completely pull out of the area that we just ran the pilot in. And so that's why you see the sheriff's office and law enforcement continuing to monitor there so that as we expand the program, we don't leave those communities behind.
Yeah, that was definitely the original intention of the entire roadmap task force, is to build, not create and move.
And I'd like to chime in from a code enforcement perspective. This will allow us to hire 2 additional code enforcement officers. That will increase our staff. So we'll still be able to deal with all the other districts. This will give us basic minimum adequate coverage. Obviously, we always need more, but we can now have 1 officer assigned to all the townships and all the program areas that code enforcement is charged with. So this is going to actually help us to increase to deal with Nice and Lucerne, but also have coverage for all the other areas as well. So.
And we have recently, didn't we just get that grant for the cannabis? We have 2 code officers for cannabis. So we do have 2 code officers that will be assigned to illegal cannabis.
And I would suggest also in the numbers that were shared with us, with the number of plants and the number of dry weight that was confiscated or cut down, that these are community growth boundaries. That's a lot of plants in a community growth boundary. So I think that part of the, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Supervisor Green, but part of the concept of illegal eradication of illegal cannabis being eradicated, is more outside of those community growth boundaries where there's a lot of plants and potentially environmental crimes out more towards the national forest and stuff like that. We do need to focus on those things, but that's not the focus of this. This is about community. This is about creating a safe environment for our businesses, for our people to live and play, and I think that's exactly what we're doing. Those numbers are both fascinating and horrifying all at the same time. And the fact is, we have to find what is the biggest issue that we need to tackle. Rather, the way that I've always looked at it when it comes to focus enforcement is you can go to every beach in the state of California and grab a handful and walk away and say, look, I changed something, but nobody's going to notice. But if you actually go out there with a backhoe and start digging into one area versus a little scoop from every single one, people will start to notice that that one area is changing. We need to have people see that we're making change. It's great that we work really hard and we try to touch everything, but sometimes when we touch everything, it appears to everybody that we're not doing anything. And we have to have those big results and we have to have those large impacts and we have to work where the work is needed. And I think this is exactly what we're doing here. And I appreciate the numbers. I appreciate the movement, energizing of the substations is absolutely a core ingredient to this, which was part of the original plan. It's a little easier now that it's in Lucerne. That's the focus. That's where the substation is. So that will come to reality. But this is not the end game. This is only the second step in a multi-step process to get to all the communities. And I hope that we're able to do all those things. So I appreciate what's here. I appreciate the work that's been done. And I'm looking forward to more amazing and horrifying numbers because that means we're actually making an impact. Supervisor Simon.
Completely support, what's been presented today as we keep moving forward. And as we talked about when we put it together, this was expanding hopefully for the whole county. This is great that we are expanding. We're not there yet, but we'll just keep supporting it and keep moving forward. One thing I want to make sure too is that we follow up on the prosecutions of these folks. Great to see the numbers, but also having, if they're moving around to different areas and, they've gone from one area to another, that we're following up on the prosecutions. We're making sure that those things are happening because we don't want them just moving around the county and doing illegal activity in other areas. Want to make sure we follow up on that. But the numbers, this is kind of the vision that we talked about to start with, getting positive impacts in some of the most needed areas, and it's happening. So we'll continue to work as a board to get staffing. We always know that's always an issue, but every position we can add, whether it's in code enforcement or even in the sheriff's department, allows us an opportunity to serve the community that much better. So I support this project moving forward, and we'll see what happens when it comes back at budget.
Supervisor Pyska. Vice
Go
Chair?
ahead, you go first.
No, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, no, just glad we're moving forward with this. I enjoyed meeting with you all about this, and as you know, I'm consistently, looking at different things, especially when it comes to the previous roadmap task force. I know Earth usually would have the presentations and on all of that, and I know that it did provide kind of like a stance where they couldn't move over, if you will. And so I really appreciate that COPTR is like what it is. It would be going to the spots that's needed. Because I know in dealing with some of these calls and whatnot, they do switch from town to town, whether it be Clear Lake, whether it be Nice, Cobb, Kelseyville, Lucerne, and then Spring Valley. Like, we've seen how they've connected in different areas. And Marcus, you've mentioned in code how that's happened as well. So this concept is a really good one to enhance and move forward. And of course, we'll come from another spot where we'll be able to enhance and move forward on that. And I think it's a very important thing also for that corridor. I mean, for some reason, that corridor attracts a lot of people to drive through it naturally because of the scenic corridor, but also the folks. I mean, you've seen folks come here and talk about the needle exchange and other things and all this other stuff. And so with patrolling, I know that some of the community, they know that when the patrolling happening, it's a deterrent, and so I'm just very excited to see this move forward, and hopefully it enhances to where we have the station everywhere, like you talked about, Sheriff. I know it's a lofty goal, but I think that's going to be where we need to get in order to keep people safe and feeling secure, and also ensuring these people that are violating when it comes to code are taken care of in that situation to where it can't happen again. As of right now, it happens and then it stops. They go right back in and do the same thing. They're emboldened even more. If we can surround, occupy, do what we need to when it comes to what we can legally, it stops that from happening again. It heals the situation, if you will. So really optimistic about this, and I appreciate we're moving forward in this direction.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, and just one more thing, and you touched on it, is we're learning in our opioid community meetings that this is the drug trafficking corridor, and it's taking products from the I-5 corridor to 101, and so essentially we're going to have a 5-year commitment in this area. So I think that's pretty incredible too.
And we did have a conversation about making sure to reach out to our district attorney. We mentioned a specific individual to invite them. We'll see if that occurs. I also brought up animal control. That was part of the original team that we had built, and just want to make sure that we're not just ticketing people or not just giving them a hard time, but if there needs to be convictions, we need to get to the conviction part. We're trying to change behaviors. We're trying to set a new standard, and we all need to play together to make that happen. So I have a good feeling about where this is all going. Anything further?
Just an exploratory question. With the roadmap task force, is there any way to tie the opioid funds too, since it is dealing with fentanyl, other stuff like that? I know it's specific in a lot of those things for treatment and recovery, all of those preemptive things, but I'm going to pose the question today.
Yeah,
If any of during the opioid planning that we're going to do with those settlements, if that's an opportunity too, so.
we'll look into it, see if it's an eligible task or program.
And that's all.
But I can't speak
I
to it
think
right
I
now.
asked that recently,
Okay.
and I don't think it
But we'll
is.
look into
But
it.
yeah.
I don't want to make a misstatement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
No, it's
general
it's a
question
good
on
idea.
Being the task force, obviously, and the fentanyl that's been, obviously confiscated. So just having that conversation.
No, I like the question. Let's go ahead and open up for the public. Any comments from the public on this item? Please come on up.
Hi, I'm Helen Owen. And my first part of the question is, I know that you guys are overworked and understaffed as sheriffs, but I would like to see a little more, I know with the drug down in South County, particularly when I've been out campaigning. I'm running for District 1 supervisor. When I've been out campaigning there, I've heard a lot of issues with the Twin Lakes area and some attention in that area as well. I know we're doing a corridor, but I would like to see, kind of bring that to your attention to put it on your radar.
On the radar.
It's on the radar? Good.
Thank you. And we have 2 hands in Zoom, now 3. We'll start with Donna
I just make a comment? And Marcus, I know that you're involved with Twin Lakes a lot down there. We've been focusing on that area, so you can.
Yeah, we're
Talk about
involved in
everything.
Twin Lakes. Most of it's cannabis related. We have a few properties that just erected hoop houses, and as soon as they erected, we were on them, and now they've taken them down. We're doing a meeting with the local water district down there to kind of see if there's a relationship there that we can form to help do this. But Twin Lakes is an area that we've identified. We were just out there for a substandard property yesterday as well, so that is on our radar as well.
It has been for a few years, so.
It has been.
We've really picked up in that area, so appreciate all the hard work you guys do.
Thank you for that. Donna Makowitz on Zoom.
Donna Makowitz from Clear Lake Oaks Keys. Our 823 property owners have really benefited from and appreciate everything, especially the communications with the Roadmap Task Force. This has made a great impact, not just in our subdivision, but throughout the Earth area. And thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Jonathan Cronin.
I live in Nice, and I would love to see the task force implemented in Nice and Lucerne. On Hudson Avenue in Nice, we have been dealing with meth and heroin and fentanyl sales for the last 6 years. We have constant drug traffic and usage. Most of the customers who frequent these meth houses are felons. They bring stolen cars, motorcycles, motorhomes, bicycles, tools, and other stolen goods to our neighborhood. Every person in this neighborhood has been negatively impacted by the meth and fentanyl sales. Most of the residents in the neighborhood have been a victim of property crime. We are all woken up nightly from nonstop drug traffic. Everyone in Lake County sees the blight and abandoned cars around the county. This is a byproduct of allowing meth houses to thrive. If we want to truly clean up the community, we need to focus on the meth, heroin, and fentanyl dealers. It's not like these meth houses are hard to find. They sell it out in the open. The meth houses are safe havens for felons. The felons know that they can sell stolen goods and drugs without consequences. I have lived in Nice since 1979, and I've called Lake County home for the majority of my life. Lake County has always had a meth problem, but it was somewhat low key. Now it's blatant. The parks in Nice are filled with homeless meth addicts. This is a major deterrent for our tourism industry. Meth addicts hang out near the boat ramps, looking for victims to target. Keeling Park and Hinman Park in Nice have turned into a junkie's paradise. Nice desperately needs some attention from law enforcement and code enforcement. One of the meth houses on Hudson is selling meth from a red tagged unit and a yellow tagged unit on the property. The residents of Hudson feel the county has abandoned us. Please do more to make our community livable again. Also with District 4, they have the Lakeport PD and the Sheriff's Office. In District 3, we are 100% reliant just on the Sheriff's Office. So hopefully we do see some change in our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next is Jennifer Denham.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I would just like to, I'm liking everything that I'm hearing here today. I have to concur with everything that Mr. Cronin said. I would just like to remind code enforcement, Mr. Beltramo, and the Sheriff's Department that this community is on your side, that we have made numerous calls, and now I understand about the lack of staff. We just want to see that follow through. And I see that we're going to be getting that now, and that makes me really happy. So I just want to say thank you, and a special thank you to Supervisor Eddie Crandall. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I see no further hands in Zoom and no one getting up in the board chambers, so I'll go ahead and bring it back to the board.
All right, so I will go ahead and move to approve in concept the 3-year community-oriented, policing and targeted restoration COPTR program and direct staff to include the program within the fiscal year 2024, 25, 25, 26, and 26, 27 budget unit 2603 and 2201.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any oppose? Motion carries. Thank you so much for all the work you guys are doing at changing communities.
Thank you.